Let's get started. Quick round of intro.
What's going on, y'all? I'm Ben, co-founder of Optimism. Yeah. Hello, I'm Hudson, and I am a VP of, what did I need to get? Oh, strategy and community at Polygon.
I will do simpler. I'm just Nicolas. I'm leading Linea.
Peng. Hello, I'm Sandy from Scroll, and I do a little bit of everything.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick, the CEO of Fuel. We built Layer 2s on Ethereum, and happy to be here.
Cool. So let's get started. So all the answers need to be wrapped. So please make sure you start wrapping. Oh, cool. So let's start. So how many of you guys deployed a smart contract on a rollup on a Layer 2? Cool. Okay. Cool. We kind of all know there are some challenges in our ecosystem. So let's discuss that, right? So what are the challenges around Layer 2s that we're facing today?
Layer 2s really suffer from a problem of fragmentation currently, and that might actually be the biggest problem I can think of. There's other ones that are more deeper and technical about aligning with L1 EVM and, some of the deeper things in there, but really the fragmentation of having all these different networks and you're sending a transaction to Polygon and the stuff can't be seen on Optimism, or you have to have something like a bridge, which is a very precarious way to transfer stuff back and forth between two blockchains. So I'd pick that one.
I think we're at a stage where in terms of capacity we're there, and the next point is to justify this capacity. So we can do maybe 50, 100 TPS per second, but most rollup do 10. So we're looking for 90 more TPS.
I think the time for TPS chasing is somewhat behind us, and the time is to focus on security and focus on kind of how to foster a network of creativity and fun.
In terms of the current challenges, I think Ethereum is still highly restrained on the bandwidth side, even for just posting state diffs of ZKs, for example. And I feel like we actually don't have enough capacity to deal with, potentially another bull run, if that makes any sense. I feel like, given what I've currently seen from the existing Layer 2s, we actually might need a lot more capacity. And I don't necessarily know if 32 kilobytes a second is going to be enough with 4844. And I think that actually represents a pretty large challenge, considering how the blockchain space is evolving.
Will you touch on 4844, right? Like, what will be the impact on that? Like, do we see something?
Well, the impact would be that most of the rollups under load will eventually get to a point where we'll actually, maybe be fighting over that data a lot more than we think. And I think it could lead to a place where even between the ZK and the optimistic rollups, that data ends up becoming yet again too expensive. And then that forces a lot of the layers to fragment again to use more external DA layers, which changes the security of Ethereum itself. So I feel like while it might be a little preemptive and existential to say that now, because we're not there yet, I do think there's going to be a massive bull run, and Ethereum might not be able to handle it.
That's good. I know, Nicolas, you are quite deep in the EIP. Like, you wanna mention something about, especially for the entire ecosystem. What's the impact around this?
So clearly today the cost for the rollups is the data availability. It's especially true actually for ZK rollups because none of them implement compression today, but all of them will do that soon. So basically they will just, because of this, divide the cost of the data availability by 5. Then they will be able to leverage this EIP. This EIP, I think it's really a kind of game changer because it's a first step. Like when Vitalik describes it, he says, okay, we start with 32 kilobytes, but the target is 1.3 megabytes per second. And it's not something that is technically difficult. As usual with Ethereum world, people are basically waiting for things to be necessary before they do it. So I know that the Ethereum Foundation will say for a while, hey guys, nobody needs more than 32 kilobytes right now. So when we will be sure that we need more than 32 kilobytes, then we will put more data available. And so we will have some interesting crises in the middle, which is, look, we really need them, and the Ethereum Foundation say, yeah, you're sure? Yeah. So there will be a lot of crises like this, but I don't expect a technical issue. It's really kind of educational thing and validation of the requirements, and it's not something that we just do for 10 minutes. So because of this, I think we're in a very safe way. I know as well that anyway some people will be very happy to propose off-chain data availability solutions, so I'm not really worried. I'm actually more worried on this fragmentation, which is, let's create 10 layers of data availability somewhere else. So which means that I don't think that we will have any issue with this, and I think, on the contrary, that it's quite clear that the data cost is going to be nothing in the next years, and the challenge will be actually on the prover, because today, for a ZK rollup, the prover cost represents 5%, 10% of the total cost, but with the changes on the data availability, actually the prover will become more important, and it means that a lot of time will be spent by various teams, including Linea, of course, about improving the prover and to lower the cost further.
What are we doing? Like, we are preparing for a big market to happening, right? Like, what are we doing, like, also on a short, medium term for, to not have the same congestion as always? Ben, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah. So the question is, how are we going to prepare for the next the next wave of mass adoption? To be honest, I mean, I'll give a contrarian take here, which is that usability is, like, I think the biggest thing that we need to be solving. Like, we are, like, I think I agree with many of the takes here that from a horizontal scalability perspective, we're managing to handle the throughput problem. Unfortunately, what we are doing, in doing so, which touches on what Hudson said, is we are explicitly making what was already a horrible user experience even worse. Now we have, like, network switching and all these other problems. So, there are definitely still problems to be solved. Like, there's a whole discussion around data availability and whether that will support the global use cases. I think probably actually it won't. It'll support a certain class, but there'll be a lower security class that we can't possibly fit everything into a single chain, no matter how sharded or sampled it is. But at the end of the day, those things are coming secondary to what I think is the most important thing, which is making crypto damn usable. I think if we're going to have another wave of mass adoption, there has to be a huge portion of people that don't know that they're using crypto when they're using it. They just need to be, like, interacting with a website. And we are slowly getting there, but I think we still got a ways to go.
Feel free to jump in, huh? I will ask more spicy question.
Yeah, I mean, I also agree with that 100%. Like, right now, basically, crypto in general, it doesn't matter what you're using, is it always has been, but now, it's really a dumpster fire of user experience. Like, it's pretty bad across the board. And there's a lot of different changes happening to really address this. But in general, because of things like fragmentation, and also because of things like not being able to have execution layers that can handle lots of load, you typically, for the user, it's usually pretty abysmal. And when things get really busy, that's when things get very expensive and things become inaccessible. So even with Fuel, like, the mission statement of Fuel itself is just make blockchains usable. That's literally our mission statement. And because usable encompasses everything, it encompasses scale, it encompasses accessibility, it encompasses how human it is to actually interact with these networks. And so I completely agree, usability is 100% the issue. I think scale, safety, and humanness, though, are a byproduct of usability, or they're like a subset of usability itself. Without them, the system is not very usable, if that makes sense.
Do you think, like, EVM compatibility, like, make something, like, more usable? Because for me, like, developers are used to their tech stack. So what do you think about that?
I'm kind of looking through here, and I feel like I'm seeing hackathon people, who went to the hackathon, people who are sitting by their companies or banks that don't know shit, and they're like, hey, figure this out. Sent by, other Web3 companies just trying to learn more and dive in there, which is why this is a technical discussion panel primarily. And usability is a big part of that. So I've seen a lot of good things progressing on that. One of them is Scaffold ETH with Austin Griffith and Biddleguild, where you can go in and from scratch, a few people have used it. And from the beginning, just like, it like lays out what a smart contract is. You put in the things. It's like step by step to make your first dApp. When Ethereum started and was launched in 2015, we had a similar thing that was written in some old thing called Meteor, and or it was written on the Meteor platform, which
I used that. I used that exact code base.
It was rough, right?
Yeah, no, it was horrible.
So all that to say, there's a lot of things from, I think, all of us going on to help with usability. What Polygon's doing specifically, first and foremost, it's not the bull market anymore, so you're going to be seeing a lot less overt partnership announcements compared to the technical and dev-related stuff. that's something that we're really pushing for there. We're going to be going to more hackathons, more intimate things, posting more about the tooling we offer. So we really want to make a deeper connection than we have before with the people using our chain or wanting to understand even just Ethereum or other L2s. Yeah, just kind of be looking for that from Polygon. I know that there's already a lot of good stuff across here that they could all talk about for stuff they've created already as well.
Yeah, I really like what you say there, like Hudson, because like we were on Monday on this hyperlink that we organized like a fireside chat with Stani. I was mentioning like, hey, today we are very, like our GTM are very like product centric, which will move to like more on a ecosystem centric kind of GTMs. And I think it was really cool to see like, like we need to have more and more like active community to, further develop like our products, our developer tooling. Like I think this is extremely important, right? About developer tooling, like are we there? Like, do we think like we need more? What is missing there?
I mean, it's gotten a whole lot better, bro. I think when I think back to writing my first smart contracts and like we were in a world where like the version of your package manager and the version of these packages was like made a massive difference, and there was like some things you could try to do and the combo just wouldn't work. So I think we've gotten a lot better, and there's no question that we should continue that momentum and like carry and pave the way for the EVM. Part of me wants to say that there's enough boilerplate and enough amazing things, like you mentioned scaffold, that at this point, part of me wants to say that we need to turn our attention towards enabling the developers to put power into the hands of the people and the users more accessibly. Again, we go back to fragmentation, where like there is not one consistent way for users to interact with the entire crypto ecosystem. There's like often siloed chunks, and you have to switch between them in these very explicit ways. And, I think a developer thinks a lot more about TCP/IP and, DNS than a user does. A user just like goes to a website and clicks a link, and it takes them to another one, and it takes them to another one. So maybe it's not accurate. I'm sure like, the right person could come with a whole suite of complaints on why the developer stack for Ethereum is absolute garbo. All things considered, I think it's a lot better. I feel like now we got to pull the weight back up on the user experience side.
If you find a developer, just walk up to him. If he's before 2017 for Ethereum, just say bignumber.js and just see the look of horror in their eyes.
It was horrible. Yeah. The whole thing. Like, so I was probably one of the first people to use Ethereum as just a person and on the outside of the foundation. And I can tell you where it was when I got to it and where it is now is completely different. I mean, there was basically a whole different idea around what the tooling might even be, and it was absolutely abysmal. Nothing worked. Pre-mainnet, nothing worked. Post-mainnet, it got better, but it's taken many years. I'll just say, though, that as a project that doesn't actually follow the EVM, and we have our own virtual machine, and as a project that we build all of our own language and all of our own tooling and everything, on our side, I think the Ethereum tooling space, while it's gotten a lot better, is also part of a very fragmented style of development, community development, that while it's been beneficial to find certain ways to do things, I think has been absolutely the wrong move and has held the ecosystem back years because of the way that it was fragmented and the way that it was developed. And I'd argue that if the Ethereum Foundation had just done the tooling and had actually just funded it and built a cohesive platform out of it, it would have been a lot better. And we probably would have gotten to the answers a lot faster. I know that's a debatable thing to say, but I'm trying to keep the panel spicy and not just, that's right. I got to lay some fire over here. But still though, I really deeply appreciate the EVM, how far everything has come, how far the community has come. I'm very grateful, but for us, we feel like it's the next jumping point into something new and not necessarily something that we feel like we need to continue. The EVM, Solidity, etc. Yeah.
I think like definitely developer tooling is a big part, right? Like I think people are also like used to like, their Solidity, like their Foundry, I don't know, like I think it's definitely like a big chunk, but I don't know, like you guys are the expert, right? Like I think like what is happening in the ecosystem is definitely like a big change compared before, right? But are we there yet, right? Like what are we doing for also like improving like usability? I don't know. I think that's the other question, right?
I would just say something maybe more positive in a way. Is thanks to layer 2s, the gas is much cheaper than what it used to be. So a lot of time spent in low-level optimization because every single gas unit was important is something that is not necessary anymore, or much less necessary anymore, which is good for code quality, audit, security, time to market. So this type of stuff is implicitly improving globally how the system is working.
I think Sandy's going to be great for this one.
As an L2, I think we look at more tooling than projects on a regular basis. And there's actually a very, very rich pool of developer tools out there. And whenever we profile them, it kind of feels like searching for a nail while you're while you're holding a hammer. And it's kind of like approaching the blockchain business problem almost from a backward perspective. I think whenever we think about why there hasn't been more users and why there hasn't been more blockchain adoption, we look at a place where I think, in the next bull run, there might be a lack of block space, but right now that's definitely not the case in particular. It's perfectly affordable for most people living in the developed world. And there's definitely not a shortage of new tools that are coming out on an almost weekly basis. And the number of developers versus the number of applications in the space is also absolutely enormous. I think what's really missing is people who can think astutely about what user needs are and think about it from a design perspective and work backwards. And I'm sure whatever tools you need will be kind of built around that.
Yeah, I think also like what you touched there is very interesting. I think there are also a lot of misconception being around. I don't know, like I'm interested to hear like, what some like, fun fact or misconception that you hear on a daily basis. I don't know, like similar to a account structure, for example, like things are getting more expensive, for the users. Who is paying for those transactions? Like same for layer 2s.
So I don't like 4337, and again, it's not like the layer 2 we're building follows any of 4337, but I think it's too bulky, and I think it takes up way too much room and space for something that could be a lot simpler if done just at the native level itself. And it's unfortunate that it's getting as much traction as it is, because there's a much deeper and more sophisticated level of account abstraction that can be done. It's just, it needs to be done at a different level. And I feel like, your best bet is basically either doing something away from the EVM, or it's going to be adjusting what you believe account abstraction should be for your layer 2 and integrating something smarter, because it's not good enough. And I don't think it'll really create the user experience that people want for Ethereum. Yeah.
I guess I would add to that for the account abstraction piece. So there's been multiple iterations of account abstraction dating all the way back to 2016, at least 4 or 5, Nick. I don't know. I hadn't kept up with them all. But the goal in general of account abstraction, there's a lot of them, but like you're basically making sure that you can have any account, including a personal account you make with a ledger or in MetaMask, be a contract. So then you can like potentially eventually do fees with your own token instead of Ether and stuff like that. So that's kind of was the goal. It's now shifted different ways. We're still doing specifications. The good news, though, at least at the L2 level, there is an initiative that the Ethereum Foundation, but specifically Yoav Weiss, got together called like the RIPs, like Roll-Up Improvement Proposals, or the Roll-Up Group, or we're kind of coming up with a name. It's a very large Telegram group of every L2 that I'm aware of. If you're not in there, let me know, because they just added a bunch of people. But that group talks about basically what to do when we need to implement something in L2, but L1 doesn't have it in the EVM yet, because it all involves opcodes and very specific things in the EVM. So if we want to go faster than the Ethereum developers do, because they're going slower and safer, we kind of all have to somewhat agree on what specific cryptographic curves and other things we're using for our specification of 4337. So that group is meant to get everyone together and say an account abstraction wallet on Optimism is also going to work on Polygon, is also going to work on Scroll, etc. So that's really promising that everyone's doing that. We're also in other discussions about extra EVM-related stuff that would be compatibility breaking. So now things are less fragmented. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, but this is a very long coordination process with hundreds or thousands of people.
Yeah, I really like what you touched there, right? Like, and we get some like spicy question from you guys. Please prepare something. I think is very worth it. But I want to say, like, you touched a little bit on trade-off on design mechanism, right? What are the other trade-off, that both for building layer 2's usability or AA application that we need to think about?
The main trade-off, in a way, when you're building typically a ZK EVM is to implement exactly the ZK EVM and to offer exactly the same APIs, RPC call that you have on the standard nodes. And the trade-off is, okay, we want people to use this type of system easily. We want to be compatible with a layer 1. So we could have very good ideas about doing things differently, but we're not going to do that because it will just create something that is not standardized anymore. So that's, I will say, the main trade-off. But it brings a lot of value because it means that, first, if it works on the layer 1, it will work on the layer 2. And it means as well, in terms of decentralization and in terms of competition, that if it works on a ZK VM, it will work on the other ZK VM who have done the same effort. And globally, that means that integrating to layer 2 is quite easy, and it's kind of safe for the future. So that's a typical trade-off that I think is a very good one.
And sorry, just to come back to the question again, it was really about usability, account abstraction, and sorry, what was it again?
It was the layer 2's, right? The trade-off around like design pattern that we are building on.
So I'm sure the EVM teams will come up with very interesting different variations of all forms of account abstraction and still try to retain compliance with what's being discussed. I think the benefit from our side being non-EVM and having our own is that we can do really wild things, like very, very different from what you typically see, particularly because we have a UTXO model, which Vitalik just recently decided to come back to. Woo! No idea why, but that's fantastic. Amazing. The main thing there is we can do wild things with account abstraction itself. So for us, we can do these things called predicates, which allow you to effectively build all kinds of stuff. If you wanted to build order book orders with just account abstraction, no smart contracts, you can do that. If you want to support these, nascent curves like WebAuth and passkeys, etc., you can just do that. And we allow developers more ways to build than just smart contracts. And so I think an issue with Ethereum that I had before was everything is either a call or it's a smart contract. And this paradigm was really, really tricky to build very sophisticated kinds of applications that I knew would be efficient longer term. And so by changing the paradigm, trying to bring devs to more interesting ways to use blockchain, like native assets and UTXOs and predicates and scripts, you can really change the dynamic of how builders use blockchain itself, and you can make very competitive, very efficient applications. So account abstraction fits into that. But for us, we want to contribute that difference to Ethereum so that Ethereum devs can see what this is like. And hopefully it has influence over EIP processes as well. But there's so much more that can be done if you just kind of open your world a little bit to all these other things that we know about with blockchain.
I think when we started thinking about different technical designs of the ZK EVM, we made a conscious decision to stay as close to the EVM secure and technically possible capacity and let account abstraction innovation happen on the application and wallet level. And that was a very conscious decision, even though we know account abstraction is the future and it is a major step in terms of UX improvement. I think so far looking back, this has been an interesting decision because now there's a huge amount of account abstraction experimentation happening at the wallet level. There are account abstraction wallets that are very focused on the paymaster element, so therefore taking away the gas fee payment as a blocker for on-chain transactions. And there are account abstraction wallets that doesn't focus on that, but rather focus on the identity piece. And then there are ones that focuses on various different aspects. And I think that's great because they're much closer to dApps and dApps are much closer to users. And being kind of an infra provider, it's important at some point to kind of have the humility to realize you're not as close to the end user, but you're a lot closer to the devs, and therefore kind of making trade-offs in favor of allowing for different parts of the blockchain stack innovation at different parts of the ecosystem. I think that is super important.
Yeah, they're definitely both sides of the medal. I don't know, this is a good question also for the audience, right? How many of you guys will stay in an ecosystem where it's very EVM compatible. If it's a no, raise your hand. And if it's a yes, raise your hand. Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Cool. I think there are the very different trade-offs mechanism. Like both have their pro and contras. Any question? Let's maybe give an opportunity to everybody. I think we're almost at time, but to give some spicy question, I think we have the mic somewhere. Where's the question?
While you're getting to there, I have a spicy one I can throw.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Nick, if fuel doesn't align at the EVM level or at the shared security level of Ethereum, and is also more of a UTXO concept, is it even an L2?
You made a mistake. You think that we're not going to post to Ethereum DA.
Oh, okay, you're using Ethereum as the DA or something?
Hudson, you've just made your first critical error. And also, for everyone in the room,
checkmate.
The only actual rollup was the one I built, Fuel V1. If you go to Layer 2B right now and scroll to the very bottom, it's only a few $100s in it, but still, it is the only actual rollup that achieved the full inheritance of Ethereum security. So I really do give a shit about trying to empower Ethereum to be more than what it is. Yeah.
Great. I just wanted to be spicy.
It was really good. Really spicy. I love it.
That's why we have these panels, We want to be spicy. Let's get a spicy question. I think, Eric, let me get you the mic.
Yes, so my question goes to all of you, especially Ben. Thank you, Ben. We met 4 months ago at Zuzalu. So my question is to utility. After Zuzalu, I wrote an article about utility and usability. So my question to all of you is, if you are building a technology that does not solve problem for you directly, then you have a difficulty in understanding the need of the user. And the question, why I ask this question is that most of the blockchain builders are primarily in the US. And if you look at blockchain, it's really not solving any problem in the US beyond ETF, speculation, and just as an asset. But if you go to the frontier market, Latin, in Africa, you can actually identify real use cases. Have any of you made a decision to really understand the frontier market like Africa, Latin? Such that it's not about technical challenges, it's about utility. And you cannot find utility where the problem do not affect you directly. So what's the plan for blockchains, EVM, layer 2s to really solve problem of humans using blockchain? Thank you.
Right. I guess it starts with me, shit.
The hand of fate of humanity is on, Ben.
It certainly took us a long time to flex the muscle of even being close to talking to the users. We literally rewrote the entire OP stack from the ground up, invested basically a year and a half bailing out technical debt for no other reason than we realized that we had not been talking to the people that we were building for and realizing that even the smallest changes from the EVM had huge implications down the line. Ultimately, this has to be a community effort, right? And so what that means is, from our perspective, we have to empower developers that are going to be solving those problems and are going to be out there. And you're 100% right. That is not going to be done by us. It's also not going to be done by any one organization or group. It is going to require a truly global effort. And that's why I think things like the EVM are so powerful, even though I fully admit they are absolute garbage from any technical lens you could possibly place on them. What they do is they empower a global community of people trying to solve problems to work together towards this shared common goal. So, it's the right freaking question to be asking. It's certainly something that I think everyone makes mistakes on and learns slower than they'd hope to do. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to empowering vast communities of people, and I view it as a divide and conquer. We're going to be good at solving scalability challenges, and that is going to empower people to solve the human challenges. There's basically one problem other than that we were trying to solve at Optimism that we did deeply experience when we got started, when we were a nonprofit that struggled to find funding, but saw a bunch of very rich players taking our specs and implementing them, which is the public goods funding problem. So that is one component that we are trying to solve in-house, and I do think that we have a credible claim to having some expertise and not having found that, but it takes the whole damn world.
Ben's answer was amazing. And I have just a little bit to add to that, more from the Polygon perspective, since I'm in there and kind of see that. We've really not done a good enough job of that. We do have things like a guilds program, and they're all around the world and doing that kind of stuff. But I feel like if you all haven't heard about that, it's not permeating enough. Even the ones that are, like, there's ones that I'm pretty sure every continent except Antarctica, and like y'all don't know about it. So that visibility needs to be kept up with. As far as community, the community team is being really pumped up as far as resources at Polygon, and we're specifically doing things like hiring someone who speaks Spanish and lives in Latin America, so that we can figure out what those needs are down there. Because like we'll see Mariano Conti's talk on why inflation and stuff causes all these issues, and everyone's using Tron instead of DAI, which is also the case, I believe, in Africa and a lot of Asian countries. So people just don't understand that because they're not there and they're not on the ground. So yeah, we're getting that. I think we're also trying to hire a Chinese speaker. And yeah, we just need to, like, without beating around the bush, we also like no one goes to some of these countries for blockchain conferences or has them there. Africa's a big one. Australia's too far away, so like there's rarely things there. Like there's things where we got to get a little more uncomfortable, and like actually not just be safe with that kind of stuff, because those are where the use cases are going to be.
Yeah, I want to say, before we're taking the next question there, like I want to say also, like, maybe in some kind of, like, in a word, like not always like we know what's the best for a product, like innovation, right? Like how many of you heard about snaps, right? I really like also the fact that third-party developers, like third-party community, can actually extend the functionality of a product, right? This kind of like permissionless innovation is also like what's all about, what's Web3 is all about, right?
So what is Snaps doing to make sure that like there's support for the people building Snaps to be on the ground and find the utility?
Yeah, so basically, like we're doing a lot of like ecosystem initiatives, like around developers, around ambassadors, around accelerators, like trying to kind of empower on like basically like the community, not just give like non-active feedbacks, but actually like extend the functionality, like to be like a lower layer of what. And I think like this is also bringing a lot of like powerful innovation that is coming more from the community. And I think this is also strong.
Because I think it's a very interesting one. So I think that one part of it is quite simple. People were not looking at other markets, because on Ethereum you can do 12 transactions per second, and with do DeFi you got rich in 2016 thanks to Ethereum prices. So actually you don't care about the prices, you're happy with DeFi, and that's it. And now we've got rollups. So now actually you can do much more. The transactions are much cheaper, so you can target new markets. And you need to do it, because if not, what you're doing is totally useless. So I do believe that it's going to happen, just because if not, what we're building makes no sense. The first part of it. The second part of it is, I think there's a kind of contradiction between the vision, which is, I'm thinking about the future, I will do 10,000 transactions per second, 20,000 transactions per second, and the UX, which is paying attention to details. Okay, you can say, oh, my system can do 10,000 TPS per second, long term in 20 years, but on a daily basis, you need to make sure that every transaction goes in very quickly, and you have a lot of small bugs in the UI all over the place that makes it complicated for users. So the need for the contradiction between the vision, where you forget all the details, and the UX, when you look at all the details, is something that is going to happen, I think, in the next years. Other points, the way we consider this as Linea is we do accept that we don't know. So it's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to this market, I'm going to tell you what to do. We don't know. And I think it's more interesting to accept that you don't know, so because then you will let people who knows do it. And our view is we do provide a technical layer, and there are applications that will be using this layer. And what we want is to have great relationship with these applications. We want to understand what they want to do. We want to help them doing it. We want to change what you're doing if we need to. I was discussing with someone who wanted to have a shorter block time very quickly. We can do it. So, but we are not going to do them. We're not going to do it ourselves. I think we need to have others, and it's really up to the applications to do it. And I think the localization is actually quite important as well. A lot of people are thinking, okay, it's English, it comes from the US, and that's okay. Just my accent, you can guess that it's a little bit different for me. But I think it's something actually quite important to understand and to do. So well, again, our logic is we want to have great relationship with applications, and we want to help them doing this. And if you want a spicy take at the end, why did we not have a DevCon conference in Morocco? And I know a lot of people who ask for this. Morocco is, it's close to Europe. You're not very far. You're not in the middle of Africa. You're just, But even this was complicated was asked many times and has never happened. So maybe we should do that next year.
Hi, as a new dev, I wanted to tell you, what I've seen in the world is that most devs become devs either because they're young geniuses or because they have parents that pay for their education or because they're doing it besides what they do to make ends meet. Obviously, it's a new technology. There's not a real good academia, and anything that you see online that has a certificate is very, very expensive. And what are you guys thinking for onboarding normal devs? Like not little 8-year-old geniuses, which is the room is full of them because that's all we got. What are you doing to onboard very, very able people, but normal people that need a normal education, but that need grants in order to study? Because they cannot be onboarded on this system, which is a very, very steep learning curve and a completely different logic, and then study something else or work and study this like me. Are you guys going to do some... I'm just putting an example as the 42 network. I'm a student in the 42 network, and that has been absolutely eye-opening for me.
Congratulations, you've suddenly in the right place and asking the right questions. I think I was a starting dev, and I'm still probably a very mediocre dev, if that. And I think Web3 is probably the most friendly and inclusive place for learning. And there are so many public sources of information compared to most areas of technical entrepreneurship. And I think what the space needs is somebody with adjacent knowledge of a lot of different things, but who really, really cares about solving some human problem. And that is usually the beginning of learning around various aspects. Because Solidity is just one aspect of the dev tooling, and you need to also learn about project management, need to learn about UI, UX, and the number of skills that you need to achieve a successful dev is simply endless. And as a human being, you can't expect yourself to know everything to a deep degree. So I think the world requires people who cares and people who have empathy, and that will drive you to kind of gather the necessary knowledge and the help and the expertise to kind of to solve the problems that you need to solve.
Yeah, we are running different builder initiatives, and what we are trying to also push is this compassion in code. I think this is really a cool kind of concept around just providing also a way that is not just technical, but also this kind of compassion. I think is cool. Cool. Last question. We are really on time. I think someone will raise their hand. It need to be spicy, Charles, huh?
Yeah, great panel, first of all. Thank you very much. I'm curious, it's a new spicy topic, maybe addressing Hudson first, because recently Polygon gas fee increased almost to 3,000 gray, right? There's a very unique thing happening in the Bitcoin space called ordinals with inscription. It's now migrating to Polygon, Solana, a bunch of other layer 2 as well. Comments on that, and it's kind of a very new application, but it's kind of building on a very interesting, whatever we call this Polynomics, or kind of putting data, putting things on the blockchain natively. How do you see the future? Any other speakers welcome to comment, please?
So I'm not 1,000% positive on this, but I believe the reason for the basically base fee increase as the default in Polygon for the RPC to get transactions through was a fix due to an incorrect implementation of EIP 1559 within the Polygon POS chain. So because we fixed that, now we're compatible finally with stuff like ethers.js, which is a very powerful JavaScript tooling library for people developing on Ethereum and EVM compatible chains. So I don't believe the fee increase was because of anything except for the fix. There's not really an opinionated thing besides what's best for the users and what's safest for the ecosystem when we make decisions like that. But a good thing you mentioned is, they're bringing stuff from Bitcoin over and doing this. Polygon's credibly neutral as an EVM platform. So at the base layer, you can basically do whatever you want. So I don't like Bitcoin. I don't own Bitcoin. I would not love if Bitcoin used Polygon, but they are, and that's fine with me because this is a credibly neutral platform.
Sounds good. Okay, cool. Round of applause. There you are. That was a cool one.